Welcome to Get the Facts, the program that provides you with information on government's policies and initiatives. I'm Theodore Henry. May is Child's Month. We also observe Teachers' Day and Mother's Day. But what is sometimes overlooked is that it is also Mental Health Awareness Month. This year's theme is More Good Days Together, in recognition that mental health affects everyone. Here to tell us more about this is psychiatric nurse and mental health advocate Cheryl Garrix-Lloyd. Welcome to the program, Mrs. Garrix-Lloyd.
Thank you for having me.
All right, let's jump right into getting some facts. So as I mentioned just a while ago, this year's theme for Mental Health Month is More Good Days Together. Got that right?
Correct.
So from a mental health perspective, what does a good day look like?
We will have to talk about a little bit the definitions of mental health and mental illness. But what does a good day look like from a mental health point of view?
Yes.
Good days for a community would be working together to ensure that we have the things we need to be safe, to be secure, to have fun and relaxation, like green spaces and things like that. But a good day looks like what somebody thinks is their best day. So it really means that for a child, a good day is probably getting to wear what they like to wear to preschool. Yeah. For a teenager, a good day in this world is probably going to mean everything went well, but that's not really realistic. So a good day could really be having breakfast, being on time, managing your schedule. A good day for working adults or parents, honestly, sometimes can even just look like getting into your clothes and showing up, having the resources you need to complete your task or managing your time well. So a good day mentally looks like for each person what allows them to breathe and complete their task and feel comfortable with that, in honesty.
It's kind of the perspective you have.
Correct.
According to the events of the day, as opposed to the events of the day necessarily being perfect.
Correct.
Got it.
Yes.
So May highlights several groups. We mentioned the children. There's also the adolescents, the teachers, the mothers, the nurses. You fit in many of those categories. But let's start with children and adolescents. Now, mental health challenges, from your place of experience, what are some of the most common mental health challenges children and adolescents face?
Children and adolescents, what we found globally, eating disorders could be a challenge and or conduct disorders, but the top two things are usually anxiety and depressive disorders.
And people are like, children, what am I to be anxious about?
Correct.
What am I worried about?
I was just thinking that when I was coming down, because we tend to dismiss when they highlight their challenges and say, you don't work, you don't pay bills, why do you need to feel stressed?
Homework is easy.
Yeah, so they can feel anxious or they can feel very sad and down, which is different from having diagnosis of anxiety disorder or a depressive disorder. But the symptoms can be similar.
Right.
And there are different things depending on their age and stage. So it could be about the homework, it could be about managing their time, it could be about not having enough playtime, it could be not getting the things they ask for. Right. But then you have to learn the life lessons to go along with that. So we shouldn't be dismissive, but they really do have things to be stressed about. And so from anxiety and depressive disorders, what we really look out for, it includes sometimes reverting to their previous stage. So we find that they're going back for small children, for instance, they stop wetting the bed and they go back to that. Right. And they get clingy, don't want to leave. As they get older, it can look like withdrawal, don't want to hang out with their friends, not using their devices, locking up in their rooms. I mean, we have that phase in teenage, but we notice it differently. It can look like being worried all the time or feeling very anxious about things and they can't maybe explain to you what in particular it is. So they do have stress.
Right, they do. So your pardon me for using this word, your prescription then for the caregivers and the parents, those who are looking after them, would start with don't be dismissive. Don't be dismissive.
It also includes knowing your child or your children. A lot of times we have what we call intuition, and you'll notice something's a little off. Right. But one of the things that stigma about mental health does is it allows you to be dismissive or to hide away because you don't want to acknowledge that something may be off. But I would say for intuition as well, if you notice something is off, then pay attention to that. It depends on what it is.
Ask questions?
Ask questions.
Right.
I said to my son, and he tells me, no, Mommy, I appreciate that as a child, you were my friend. I was friendly, but I was his mom. And I kept saying to him, I have to prepare you. So you look at what's happening to them, but be approachable so they can talk to you. They will explain to you what's happening to them. And when they say that, I've had a few cases, unfortunately, where children have come to me and said, I try to explain, and my parents say I'm attention seeking.
Yeah.
Don't do that. The longer you take to acknowledge if it needs more help, is the worse it becomes. So learn to listen to them, pay attention, ask a few questions. Honestly, check their phones, know their friends, know the parents of the friends. What do they like? Notice if they stop wanting to play sport or going out or any of those things.
And seek it out.
Correct.
You're saying don't just make statements or accusations.
No, we call that
find out.
probing. You have to actually dig a little bit deeper.
Yeah.
And the number one thing I would really say is lead by example. Children live what they learn. And even though we tell them things, they're observing. So they notice when you are stressed and not managing your time, or you're hiding some things away. And so they're learning from your behavior, not just what you say.
So do what I say, and also do what I do. And show them something good to do.
Correct.
Got it. All right, so we're sharing this month with a lot of people, teachers and nurses. You fall in that category as well. And the teaching environment, the nurse environment, by default seem to be high-pressure environments, which often leads to burnout. And my question then is, teachers and nurses, what should they be looking out for? How should they self-regulate?
Well, the first thing I would say is, in honesty, once you decide you'd like to become a teacher or a nurse, or both, as I have, it automatically comes with the knowledge that you're probably heading to compassion fatigue or burnout. So they need to highlight that when you start your programs, because we need to know. 2, I would say, while we're advocating or working on creating healthy working environments, we have to prioritize our own mental health.
Right.
So the things we're looking out for, your changes in your eating habits. So sometimes when we stress eat. Nobody stress eats carrots. We want cake and KFC and so on.
Fair.
Changes in your sleep. So either we're sleeping too much, because when you sleep you don't worry, or you're not sleeping and your mind is processing and ruminating. Rumination is soaking in the negativity. Changes in meeting deadlines, in managing your time, changes in what we call absenteeism. So you stop turning up for work. But we also have presenteeism. You physically turn up, but you're not there. So you're just turning up in this space. So those are things we particularly look out for. The chronic fatigue, no matter what it is, even if you're not expending more energy, you're always tired. And suddenly feeling like you can't manage the things you used to be able to manage every day.
I need to jump in here. We're gonna go to our break, but if I could underline one thing, you said children, caregivers, pay attention and probe. Teachers and nurses, pay attention to yourself.
Correct.
Probe. All right, so we're at the break, but stay with us. We'll be right back. Welcome back to Get the Facts. Earlier we looked at mental health as it relates to children, teachers and nurses. We continued the discussion with Cheryl Garrix-Lloyd, psychiatric nurse and mental health advocate, and mother.
And mother.
Right. So, Lady Garrix-Lloyd, it's Mother's Day, so let's talk about the mothers. Mothers, especially those who might be balancing multiple responsibilities. Maybe you live an active life, you're a worker and a mother and all of that, all the permutations that you possibly have. I'm going to understate it and say can also face mental strain. What practical steps do the mothers need?
I took a deep breath for that one. I thought you were throwing your words at me, but practical steps involve, I'll start at the very first one, learning to prioritize yourself without guilt. Because mom is a full-time job, 24, 65, 365, no break. However, we tend to think when you become a mom, you give up on yourself and only focus on those you care for. It's not true. So prioritize yourself without the guilt.
Which is not a great equation, because if you fall down, then who's going to be mom?
And you think that would be easy for us to follow along with. But honestly, you'd say, if I'm not naked, I don't worry about clothes. If I'm not barefooted, I worry about the shoes. So prioritize yourself without the guilt. So it involves self-care. It involves having a circle of support so you can know how to delegate some things, how to accept the help when you need it, how to ask for it when you need it. It involves me time. There's absolutely nothing that says as a mom you can't just squeeze yourself in, and this has to be something you do every single day.
And kids are rubbery. They can do it.
They can. And then you're teaching them as well that they need to have me time, they need to take care of themselves, and they're going to grow up learning that. So you also have to know when there are simple things. I like to give practical. If you need to cook dinner today and you didn't remember, listen to me, it's not life and death if you buy rotisserie chicken because you had rice in the fridge. Make some vegetables.
Right.
You go home and you're feeling exhausted and you say, I could soak my feet. You don't need to go to the spa. You know, you have a regular pan at home, some Epsom salts, warm water, put your foot in it while you're eating. That works for you. And then you manage your time is important because you have to care for self and children and all the other roles you have. So if for me, for instance, I'm studying, I'm working, I'm taking care of my children, I do mental health advocacy, it's a matter of also what I call prioritizing. Some people say balance, but balance is hard. It's like this, and it's not always easy to achieve. So I do prioritizing.
Because everything isn't important or
not in the same way at the same time.
Right. Okay. And that can, let me just stick on mothers for a little bit. That can sometimes feel like, oh, no, I have something else to do. Yeah, I have to now figure out all of that balance. How you respond to that?
I would say put yourself at the top of the list. Self-care is giving the world the best of you instead of what's left of you. So when you put yourself at the top, you can give out to everybody else who needs. So yes, it does involve some behind-the-scenes work, but automatically it makes it easier as you move forward. So you're going to have to be prepared to do a little of the work. But if it makes it easier, then certainly jump in and put that list together and get it done.
Got it. In our first segment, you mentioned that we needed to define mental health.
Yes.
And I have here that sometimes mental health and mental illness can be confused or treated like the same thing. Help me out here.
So we use mental health as an umbrella term. So if you search for it, a lot of what comes up is about mental illness, really.
Yes.
But there are two different concepts. So the World Health Organization says mental health has to do with recognizing your abilities, working productively and fruitfully, being able to manage the normal stresses of life. It's more than the absence of a mental illness. So you know, if a mental illness doesn't automatically make you mentally healthy. And then a mental illness is defined, usually I use the National Alliance of Mental Illnesses definition, which says it's a behavioral pattern or syndrome that affects how we feel, think, or behave, and affects your ability to function daily. Usually you have to be seen by a health professional, you get a diagnosis, and we have a myriad of diagnoses, which are mental illnesses in adults. For children and adolescents, we call them mental disorders, but they're two different things. So mental health, all of us have that. It's a daily journey that we work on to get it and to keep it. Mental illnesses are like any other illnesses. You start to have signs and symptoms, you get assessed, you have treatment. The common thing they do have is it's over a lifetime consistent effort that it requires. So having a mental illness diagnosis doesn't mean your life is over, and you have to also work on your mental health every day so that when you get there, it's not a destination. You have to keep going to keep it.
And having good mental health requires
minimizes mental illnesses. And being mentally ill doesn't mean you can't be mentally healthy because you're active in your care and recovery and treatment.
All right. So how can families, schools, I'm making a list here, workplaces, these are the places that we spend essentially our lives. How can all of these work together? Give somebody that vision of how all of this can work together to create that environment that resonates with the theme. More good days for everyone. Together.
So that's the key term there, together.
Together.
It has to be done together. When we try to do things individually, it doesn't always work as well. So I'd say for families, for instance, I usually say to persons, have immediate goals or short-term goals or long-term goals. So what that can look like for all of us together as in a family, it's perhaps having devotion together once per week. It's perhaps going on that trip out once every 3 months. It's small things like making sure if you like to eat something, you have that in the grocery and you get it put there.
But Lady Garrick's like, this is big. Families must have goals.
Yes.
Don't just exist.
Not just exist, and it shouldn't just be about the individuals. So you need me time as mom or dad, you need couples time, and you need time for the entire family. So there are things that we're supposed to do together. And so we're leading and we're showing. In a school, you spend so many hours. Mental health education and promotion is key. The difference sometimes between life and death is if you know or you don't know or where to find the information. So we have to do awareness sessions and then we put the principles into practice. So don't just have the teachers without the education. Have different days to include the children only. You know, we have boys and girls days. You have parents month. You do an entire set of activities that helps them, including mental health. School activities, a walkathon, something that's just about the fun, not just the learning. And then for the children, we can learn in fun too. Everything doesn't only have to be the blackboard or the whiteboard. Yes? So we go on a trip to learn about plants, but you make it something fun. And then you specifically have activities. The workplaces, I recently said we need mental health leave. I don't want to take a sick day if I'm not sick. I just need a mental health day. But we don't have that yet, and while we're advocating for it, coming together, a green space, a space where you can just catch your breath and debrief. Not meetings for meetings and business sake. Can we have some meetings for social activities?
Right.
Can we do some going out things? Something simple like Talk It Out Thursday, and we have a little tea and just joke around, play some games.
Yeah.
Yes?
I have to jump in here because we're out of time. But very quickly, if somebody needs more information or support, where do they go?
We have child and adolescent mental health services here in Jamaica. Like everything is public health is stretched, but it's available. We have groups, so we have Safe Spot that takes calls on WhatsApp for children up to 16. We have You Matter, which does 16 up to 24 years of age. The Ministry of Health and Wellness's mental health line and suicide line actually work. If you call and you don't get them, they'll actually call back. And then we have private care and systems that we can also utilize. And the last one we have recently was an app created by a Jamaican pastor called Talk About It. And so they get you access to some services while you're trying to figure out if you're able to get through publicly or you need to go privately.
Thank you so much. The options are available, and the caregivers, the teachers, the nurses, the mothers, you're all watching, and you know where to go and where to find things and where to help somebody who is in need. This has been Get the Facts. Our guest was Cheryl Garrix-Lloyd, psychiatric nurse and mental health advocate. Thank you for watching, and until next time, I'm Theodore Henry. Take care.